Nature is all around us, everywhere we look. Nature is the glistening snow, a windswept plateau, a river that's flowing, sunshine that's glowing, a rainforest that's steamy, a mountain that's dreamy. We're surrounded by nature in a fragrant rose garden and beside a rocky shoreline. Aquatic parks provide us with unique opportunities to view nature in all its splendor, seeing animals and habitats we might otherwise never get to see. Animals of all types are precious companions here on our planet. We laugh at their antics and their unusual appearance. We ooh and ah at their beauty and their size. Watching nature is lots of fun. From the friendly house cat in your backyard to the sluggish, slippery snail heading for your garden. Don't forget the tuxedoed penguins in their cold weather homes, or the majestic polar bears from the land of the midnight sun. Though forest creatures, hens are most commonly seen on the farm, while wild ducks may decide to light upon any pond, whether it's downtown or far into the wilderness. It's fascinating to watch animals and make note of how they care for their young, what they eat and how they gather their food, how they play and protect themselves and live from day to day. All animals, no matter where they may live, deserve our respect, admiration, and protection. We're going to look at some animals through the eyes of a talented illustrator, and from these wonderful pictures, 3 different stories will be told. The first story is a make-believe adventure. The second story, also make-believe, is authored and read by a young person. The third story is nonfiction and will be filled with real facts about real animals. Let's continue with our first Nature Watch story, The Penguin.
Once upon a time, on a chilly iceberg far to the north, there lived a large family of penguins. There was Grandma and Grandpa Penguin, Tip-Top Timmy, Slipper, Shimmer, and Crystal, and last but not least, Swimmy. They climbed and slid and played the day away. One evening, as the silvery moon rose high above the horizon, Tip-Top Timmy and Crystal went for a late-night swim. They swam here and there until they found a beautifully secluded iceberg, the perfect place for an evening out. First, they explored all the icy caves and snowy tunnels. Then, as they rested, they counted the flickering stars in the blue velvet sky. The golden sun rose early the next morning. The air was crisp and clear. Not a sound could be heard except the gentle lapping of the ocean against the edges of the isolated iceberg. When Tip-Top Timmy awoke, he was hungry. He stood up on his tiptoes, stretching his tiny flippers out to his side. Time for breakfast. Crystal was hungry too. In fact, she dove into the water ahead of him. Tip-Top Timmy was right behind her, ready to begin the daily ritual of searching for food. It wasn't long before Crystal found a school of yummy little fish. The 2 penguins were happy to be living in this big blue ocean where they could always find a meal. Every day, swimming here and there, Tip-Top Timmy and Crystal explored new waters and new icebergs. They were the best of friends. That night, on an iceberg not far from the rocky shore, they fell in love. Under a twinkling, frosty sky, they vowed to stay together forever and ever. Many of the penguin pairs were now on land searching for the perfect spot to call their own. It was time for every mother penguin to lay an egg or 2. Some couples chose to be nestled close to the rocks. Tip-Top Timmy and Crystal laid their egg on a level patch of ground with a spectacular view of their favorite iceberg. Time passed. The weather grew warmer. Tip-Top Timmy and Crystal took turns sitting on the egg, hoping it would soon hatch. Then, one day, the egg began to move a little, then a lot, and finally it began to crack. And there she was, a brand new baby penguin. Tip-Top Timmy and Crystal thought she was beautiful. And because the sun cast a copper-colored glow on the land that afternoon, they decided to name her Penny. Proud penguin parents were busy caring for their young. Crystal made sure that Penny always had enough to eat, so she'd grow healthy and strong. They all looked forward to the day when they'd go back to living in the water near the big iceberg. "It's time to test the water," declared Tip-Top Timmy one glorious afternoon. "It won't be long before we all swim to that iceberg out there." It looked very far away to Penny. She couldn't imagine ever going that far. Today, going to the water's edge for her first swim was adventure enough. All of the penguin children and their parents made the long journey to the big iceberg. It took most of the day. As the sun set slowly to the west, Penny Penguin felt happy. She had patient penguin parents, lots of perky penguin pals, and now a new home that was a perfect place to play.
This is my story called The Penguin. Once there were 11 penguins that lived on an iceberg in the sea. 9 penguins went away, so there were 2 left. They liked to dive and swim together. They caught fish and food together. They were getting very fond of each other and decided to mate. One day, the female laid an egg. They hatched the egg, and there was a little gray baby penguin. The iceberg was full now, and there were lots of little gray penguins. The mother taught the baby how to swim. Now, all 9 of the little baby penguins live on the iceberg. The end.
One of the most popular attractions at a zoo or aquatic park is the penguin exhibit. These comical black and white stocky seabirds are fascinating to watch. All penguins live in the southern hemisphere and most reside around the isolated sub-Antarctic islands. They spend up to 75% of their lives in the water, even though they belong to the bird family. Yes, penguins are birds. Flightless birds, however, and their sleek coats are made up entirely of feathers. In fact, more feathers than other birds have, over 70 per square inch. And they have a thick layer of blubber that keeps them warm in the freezing Antarctic temperatures. Did you know that a penguin's body temperature ranges from 100 to 102 degrees Fahrenheit? That's a few degrees warmer than humans. Penguins are excellent swimmers. Their stubby, oar-like flippers can propel them 10 to 15 miles per hour through the water. Though their tails and feet don't add to their power and speed, they play an important part when it comes to steering. Penguins do all of their feeding in the water. Their favorite meal is made up of fish, squid, and krill. Krill being a small shrimp-like crustacean. When adult penguins are on land, they're fairly safe. There are no predators there to harm them. But in the water, they need to be more cautious, keeping far away from any large seals, killer whales, and the occasional shark. The penguin is an amazing creature. It can migrate hundreds of miles from its nesting grounds, which is called a rookery, and still manage to return to that exact spot year after year. When a male penguin arrives at the rookery, he stakes out a small territory and begins calling with his unique penguin voice, hoping to attract a female. Most of the time, he will attract the same female year after year. This is incredible, because rookeries can hold thousands, sometimes millions of penguins. Soon after all the penguins have found their partners, the females lay 1 or 2 eggs in a crude rock nest or in no nest at all. Most of the time, the eggs are held on the tops of the penguins' feet, close to their bodies. The male and the female take turns keeping the eggs warm. In 35 to 40 days, the hatching process begins. First, the penguin chick pokes a small hole in the egg and begins chirping immediately. Gradually, he works his way out. Both parents feed and care for the tiny chicks. This is quite a job, because for the first 3 weeks, cannot be left alone ever. Penguin parents take turns going out to the water to catch fish. Then they chew up the fish and feed small amounts to the chicks. This is how the babies will eat until they have all of their feathers and can go out to sea themselves. Funny thing about penguins, they will only feed their own chicks, even if others beg for food. By the time a penguin chick is 2 to 3 months old, it should have all of its feathers and will be ready to go out to sea. There, all the penguins will feed and care for themselves. The young ones are a bit frightened about their first venture into the water, but they catch on right away. Soon they're swimming expertly toward the icebergs to the north. When a penguin approaches an ice floe and decides to hop aboard, he'll swim at top speed right up to the edge of the ice and then shoot out like a missile, sometimes 4 or 5 feet into the air. Hopefully, he lands smoothly. They'll remain there in these chilly waters around the icebergs until the following summer. When these young penguins are about 3 or 4 years old, they too will look for a partner and have chicks of their own. And the cycle begins again.